So the basic example of inheritance here is, as I shown you, like class parent colon define function one self print. This is the parent class, and yeah, this is the child class which is inheriting the methods of or function of parent class. Okay, and I'm defining function two. And after defining the classes of parent as well as child, I am creating an object for child which is called as OB is equal to child of child function. So when I use this particular object dot function 1 and object dot function 2, like if I don't inherit the child class here, if I don't inherit the parent class to the child class here, then when I use this object 1 dot function 1, it will not take the values, it will not print the values of this is the parent class. Why? Because we are not inheriting. For example, if I take something like this one, and if I execute this, it will throw an error. Why? Because child object doesn't contain an attribute called as function. So if I will comment this. Okay, now run it. This is a child class. Why? Because I am not inheriting the method of parent class into the child class. So at that time I got an error if I use object dot function one. Then it has thrown an error. Child object doesn't have an attribute called as function one. Now, if I use a function which is called as parent here, parent, open and close bracket. Now run it. Parent is not defined. Sorry, capital P. Okay. Now see, this is the parent class and this is the child class. It is accessing the values of parent class from child class only, not from parent class. Child class is the one which is going to access function 1 as well as function 2. It indicates that the child class is going to inherit the values of parent class. This is what about the basic example that we can give for uh, inheritance process. Okay, so the next here is there are different types of inheritance in Python. Like one is we call it as a single inheritance, second one is multiple inheritance, third one is multi-level inheritance, and the fourth one is hierarchical inheritance. What is single inheritance here? Single inheritance is nothing but when the inheritance involves one child class and one parent class. When the inheritance process involves one child class and one parent class, then it is called as single inheritance. Understood? Second one is, what is multiple inheritance? Multiple inheritance is a process which involves with more than one parent class, wherein the child class will access the methods and properties of n number of parent class together based upon the problem statement by using the objects of child class. It is, once again I repeat, multiple inheritance is nothing but it contains more than one parent class, where the child class will inherit the methods and properties of parent classes by using or by declaring the objects of child classes. Next is, what is multi-level inheritance? Next, the third one here is multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance is a process where the child class can act as a parent of another child class. For example, let us take an example like I have one parent class and three different child classes. Like as we have taken an example in the previous classes. Like for example, person. There we have taken an example of teacher and businessman and labor. Right there. Let us say teacher is interrelated to businessman. Businessman is interrelated to labor. Isn't it? It is interrelated. So teacher can become a parent of businessman. Similarly, teacher can become a parent of labor. Similarly, the businessman can become the owner of labor, right? So when this type of accessibility, when this type of process takes place, then this type of process is called as multi-level inheritance. I will show you once again the same example here. Here, person is the base class, which is called as parent class. Okay, and this is a child class 1, child class 2, child class 3. If child class 1 is interrelated to, if child class 1 is interrelated to child class 2 and child class 2 is interrelated to child class 3, it indicates what? Labor man is a child of businessman, whereas businessman is a child of teacher, where this child, like child class 1 can act as a parent of businessman, whereas child class 2 can act as a parent of labor man. When this particular process takes place, then it is called as multi-level inheritance. Okay, so the next one here is hierarchical inheritance. What is an hierarchical inheritance? Hierarchical inheritance is nothing but it is a process wherein the different types of inheritance process together forms one single process is called as hierarchical inheritance. We call them as hybrid inheritance. What is an hybrid inheritance? For example, single inheritance and multiple inheritance together forms one problem statement. If this is the case, then it is called as hybrid inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance is also called as hybrid inheritance, wherein it is a process which involves more than one type of inheritance. More than one type of inheritance is called as hierarchical inheritance. And this is what about the types of inheritance here is. There are four types: single, multiple, multi-level, and hierarchical. What is single? Single inheritance is nothing but if it contains one child class and one parent class, then it is called a single inheritance. Multi-level inheritance, more than one parent class to more than one parent class is called as multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance is nothing but the child class can become a parent of another child classes is called as multi-level inheritance. Hierarchical inheritance is also called as hybrid inheritance, wherein more than one method, one type of inheritance using in a same problem is called as hybrid inheritance. Okay, so this is what about the types of inheritance here. So this is one example, the above example which I have shown you earlier. This is one example which represents about an example for simple inheritance or single inheritance. This is an example which we can give it for example for single inheritance. Okay, and this is the output. So second one. Now let us go with example for multiple inheritance. What is the example for multiple inheritance? More than one parent class is called as, let me copy this particular code once again here. Okay, okay, more than one parent class. Let us say class parent 1, and this is the parent 1 class. Okay, next I will define class parent 2 colon, let me give some space and let me comment something here. Okay, this is the parent class 1 declaration, parent class 1. Okay, this is the parent class 2. Okay, parent class 2 colon, I will define function something like 2. Let us say function 2 I will define, and I will use self option here, and I will define print, open the bracket. Okay, this is parent 2 class. Okay, now next I have defined two different parent classes. Now if I use parent 1, I will use parent 1 comma parent 2 here. Okay, I have defined parent 1 as well as parent 2. Then I will use object I will define an object for a child class. Okay, child, then I will use object dot function 1, object dot function 2, object dot function 3. Okay, now I will run the program. When I run this program, what is the output? I am getting child as no attribute with the function name called as function 3. What is function 3? Sorry, here I have not defined function 3. Now run it. See, child class is inheriting the values of function 1 as well as function 2. Like if I won't use this. Okay, and I will run the program. Child class is accessing the values, methods and properties of class parent class 1 and parent class 2, and this is the child class. Child class is accessing the values of parent 1 as well as parent 2. For example, if I don't use parent 2, if I don't inherit parent 2, what will happen? It will take only the parent 1 class and it will define the object as function 2. Function 2 is not defined. Child doesn't have an attribute called as function 2. That is what the output. Why? Because I am not inheriting the properties of parent 2 class. In order to inherit the properties of parent 1 as well as parent 2 class, we have to use parent 1 comma parent 2, and when I run this particular program, it is going to inherit the values, and this is what the output that we are going to get here. Okay, and this is what the example for multiple inheritance. Two parent classes, n number of parent classes, representing n number of parent classes, wherein the child class will access the properties of the first two parent classes by using the objects or by declaring the objects, which is called as OB, where OB called as is considered as an object. Okay, so next, what is next example for, let us take a small example for multi-level inheritance. So multi-level inheritance is nothing but what? One child class can act as a parent of another child class. One child class and act as a parent of another child class. So let us take this as this example once again here. Let us copy the code completely. Okay. Okay, parent class. Now let us say I will take it as a child class 1, child class 1. Okay, and this is a parent class. See the changes, parent class and child class 1. Let us say I will take it as child class 1 and I will represent it as child class 1. Okay, where child class 1 is inheriting the properties of parent class. Okay, and whereas second child class 2 is inheriting the properties of child 1. When this is the case, in terms of the defining the object, I have defined the object of child 1 and sorry, let us say I have created an object for child 1 and object 2 for child 1, child 2, object 1 for child 1 and object 2 for child 2. Okay, after creating the object, I have created two different classes and one parent class, where that particular parent class object properties is inherited by child class 1, and the properties of child class 1 is inherited by child class 2. Okay, and I have created two different objects here. After creating the two different objects here, if I use object 1 dot function 1, let us see what we will get. Object 1 dot function 2. What is the output that we are going to get here? It is going to access the values of function 1 as well as function 2. So if I use object 1 dot function 3, whether we will get the output or we will get the error. Here we will get an error. Why? Because object 1 is nothing but child 1. Object 1 is nothing but child 1. Child 1 is a parent of child 2, right? So child 1 cannot access the functions of child 2. Why? Because parent cannot access the values of child. Instead, child can access the values from parent. So now run, it will throw an error. Why? Because object child 1 doesn't have an attribute called as function 3. So what we have to do here, we have to use object 2 dot function 3. Then it will provide you the output as parent 1 class, parent 2 class, and parent 3 class. And this is what about the multi-level inheritance. And this is what about the inheritance and types of inheritance and the advantages of inheritance. Okay, today I will give an assessment for you on hierarchical inheritance. What is an example that you can write for hierarchical inheritance will be your assessment for today's class. Okay, so take down the assessment as example for hierarchical assessment by considering a person and student details. By considering the person and student details as an example, and I will throw you the question also in the Google Classroom. So copy down the question and write down the assignment and submit the assignment by tomorrow evening. Okay, thank you.